Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Benji-Sales live chat. It's so good to be back. It is so good to see everybody. How are you doing today? Boy, do we have an explosive topic that we can talk about today. Of course, as always, there's a whole bunch of stuff that we can talk about and discuss, but I have a feeling a lot of it's going to revolve around a certain news story that has broke this morning, and it is a wild one. After months and months of discussion back and forth, what's going to happen with this Microsoft Activision Blizzard acquisition? We had early reports that the CMA was super against this, that they were being very, very tough on the deal. Then we got reports out of Europe that it sounded like Europe was going to pass this thing pretty smoothly. Then we saw the FTC try and block this in the United States. And then there was seemingly in the last week or two, positive momentum around the CMA. It looked like, despite them being, super aggressive and kind of against it in their wording early on, we kind of were getting the vibe from, the industry at large. A lot of people thought that, hey, it looks like CMA is actually going to come in and pass this thing. Then, shockingly, this morning, CMA has officially moved to block. That means Microsoft now has a battle on their hands, not just in the United States with the FTC, but also now in the UK with the CMA. Wow, what a explosive, crazy news topic. Here's what the UK said. They have announced they are preventing Microsoft's proposed acquisition of Activision Blizzard over concerns the deal would alter the future of the fast-growing cloud gaming market. The CMA said that Microsoft failed to effectively address the concerns in the cloud gaming sector. So that's what this is really about. They seem to have not found many issues in the console segment. So all the fighting that PlayStation was doing for a long time and all of the arguments about, Xbox would have a monopoly in the console market and everything, that's actually not really their concern. Their concern is actually over the cloud market. That seems to be what they're fighting against and where the issues are falling. Brad Smith from Microsoft made a statement this morning saying, "We remain fully committed to our acquisition with Activision and will appeal today's determination by the CMA." Then you had Bobby Kotick come out, of course, the CEO of Activision, and he said that the CMA's decision is far from the final word, stating the deal is good for competition. Alongside Microsoft, we can and will contest this decision, and we've already begun the work to appeal to the UK. So, wow, pretty crazy stuff popping off right now. There are reports that this now could drag out for as long as 3 years, guys. So buckle up. Not exaggerating. There are now reports that this could now go for another 3 years. I hope that is not the case. If this really gets drug out for 3 years, to me, it's a nightmare. But we will see. Hopefully, one way or another, we get a final decision quickly. So I'm sure there's going to be a ton of questions, a ton of discussion about this that we can talk about. Yesterday, we did get Xbox's financial results as part of the overall Microsoft earnings. Gaming revenue declined by 4%, content and services grew by 3%, and hardware revenue declined by 30%. I made a video on that yesterday that you can check out on the channel. It's a quick 10-minute video of my thoughts. Give that a watch if you haven't already. That video is doing very, very well for me, by the way. So, not by big YouTuber standards, but for my channel, it's doing great. It's great. So clearly you guys want more of that sort of content, some of that short form content. So, there's been a big jump in subscribers from it already on the channel. Tons and tons of comments. It's great. So I'm glad to see that. I'm sure that there will be some questions that we can talk about in here as well as part of that, but you can check out that video also. A couple other headlines from this week before I get into your comments and questions. We found out Dead Island 2 has sold more than 1 million units in its first 3 days. This is a great result for Deep Silver and for Embracer Group, who needed a win. We saw Saints Row really underperform for them, and Embracer in general has just not had a great great run lately, and Deep Silver's part of Embracer, because Embracer's kind of like a conglomerate. They have a bunch of things beneath them, right? It's not just, Embracer. They have like a bunch of sub companies beneath them, and Deep Silver is one of those. And this is a great result for a game that I think a lot of us at one point thought might even be canceled and might not ever even release, because there was all of those issues that went on with development. It's actually selling faster than the original Dead Island. It took the original Dead Island a week to ship 1 million copies, not sell. And they specifically said that it has sold 1 million copies in 3 days. So very good result there. Two other things I'll highlight before we get to your comments and questions. Angie Smets from Guerrilla has been promoted to head of development strategy at PlayStation Studios, and Guerrilla also confirmed Horizon 3 is in active development. Shouldn't be a huge surprise, no spoilers, but if you've played Horizon Forbidden West, they clearly set up the third game. However, Guerrilla themselves has come out and outright confirmed it. So we now know Horizon 3 is in active development, and Angie Smets is now the new development strategy head at PlayStation Studios. Last thing, Nier Automata has now sold 7.5 million copies since launch. This has been one of the most successful games for Square Enix in really the last decade. I'm not saying it's the number one, but it's up there. Like, it's literally one of the biggest hits they've had in the last decade. So great result there for Nier Automata. Crazy the sequel's taking this long. It's been in development for a while. Square Enix actually built an internal team to tackle the future of the Nier franchise. It doesn't sound like, unless things have changed, that Platinum will be developing the next Nier game, because they developed Automata. Square Enix specifically created an internal team to take over this franchise, and it's been a long time, so surprised it's not out yet. But that's your headlines for the week, guys. I'll start rocking into your comments and questions. Thanks for already over 100 in chat. If this is your first time ever as part of my live chat, the way it works, it's a stream, it's a show, it's 100% driven by you. Your comments, your questions, we talk about the latest news in the video game industry. There's going to be 3 ways to do that. First of all, of course, there's the free method. You type a question, whatever you want, and I get to as many free questions as I possibly can. There's going to be 2 ways, though, to guarantee that I get to your question. The first way to do that is going to be a super chat. You type a donation of whatever you want. It alerts me to the super chat, and I get to super chats immediately. However, there's also another method, and that is becoming a channel member. Channel members are $4.99 per month, and my commitment to you, if you become a channel member, is to make sure that I answer at least one question from every member every chat. So that's another way as well. And last thing on the memberships, I want to say a big thank you, guys. This last month was the first time that I had memberships process. And I know talking about money's taboo, but it was the biggest paycheck I've ever gotten from YouTube. I'm a small YouTube channel. I'm not one of these big guys that's making tons of money off of YouTube. So I'm very grateful for that. Shout out to all of the channel members. I hugely appreciate it. That influx of memberships last month led to the biggest paycheck I've ever gotten from YouTube. So thank you so much to all of the channel members. All right, guys. Let's get rocking and rolling on your comments and questions. First, we've got Rude coming in here with a 5 super chats. Do you think Microsoft backs away from the ABK acquisition instead of renegotiates with Activision Blizzard King in June? So for anyone that has missed this is actually a bit of a kind of lost thing that's kind of being ignored here. So the way that the agreement works between Microsoft and Activision is basically, if Microsoft walks right now, they have to pay Activision $3 billion. That's right, with a B. They just got to sign over for all of the troubles and all of the issues that have happened here. They got to just write a $3 billion check for Activision to basically be like, hey, sorry for everything we put you through over this acquisition, but we're leaving, so here's $3 billion. It was basically a way for Activision to make sure they didn't get screwed, right, whenever this deal first got approved, because if there was no money attached to it and the first sign of trouble, Microsoft could easily bail, right? The $3 billion stipulation there is basically protecting Activision. So that was, great, because Microsoft thought, hey, we're going to be done with this thing by June. That's what they said. They forecast to their investors this will be done by the end of our fiscal year. However, that is clearly not the case now. This is going till at least 2024. And in fact, there are even reports this could drag out for 3 years. So part of that stipulation that originally said, hey, if you walk, you got to pay us $3 billion, I believe that the not new, but the thing that will kick in is that after July 18th, I believe is the date, if they don't finalize the acquisition, Microsoft has to renegotiate this deal with Activision Blizzard, which means that the terms of the deal could change, which is very interesting. I don't know exactly all the details here. I am not an expert on law, but from what I understand, it could change as much as how much they're willing to pay for Activision Blizzard. As far as I understand, it does not have to be that $69 billion price tag after July 18th. Now, do I think that Microsoft walks? I think there's one very important piece to all of this that we still haven't seen yet, and that is how Europe rules. There was a lot of belief that Europe was going to pass this. However, there was also belief in the last few weeks that the CMA was going to pass this. And now that has been flipped on its head and the CMA has blocked. If Europe comes out and blocks as well, which I have no idea if they will, Europe might easily pass this. I don't actually know the exact date. Can someone say in chat, when is the date that Europe approves this deal or not? Let me know, guys. Let me know. If someone knows off the top of your head in chat, let me know when the final day for when the Europe will announce their decision is, because I know it's coming up. If Europe blocks as well, and we now have FTC blocking, CMA blocking, and Europe blocking, May 22nd. Thank you. Thank you so much, Min Kafti. Thank you so much. So May 22nd is when we find out what Europe thinks. If they now hit a situation where every single major market that's left, right, Europe, UK, and FTC are all moving to block, man, that starts to become sketchy on if there's any chance of getting this thing through. Right now, Microsoft believes clearly that they can still force this thing through. And I'm of mixed opinions. Part of me feels like this deal is dead as is, but part of me thinks, maybe some stipulations, maybe if they drag this out and fight long enough, maybe they can get it through. I'm not 100% sure, but if Europe blocks as well, is Microsoft going to want to battle on every single front for years and years and years potentially? Like I said, this could be 3 years. Do they want to battle not just FTC, not just CMA, Europe too? I think a lot comes down on that Europe decision that's coming up, guys. If Europe passes this thing through, that is still a massive player in the game. And they can still try to leverage that and still use it as some belief that they can get this thing through. So I think if Europe passes, Microsoft does not walk at all. I think they'll battle this to the bitter end one way or another. If Europe, however, comes out and says, nah, we're blocking too. If FTC and CMA are both doing this, we're on board with them. We're all working together to block your deal. Ooh, things get questionable if you really want to fight that for that long, because it won't be quick. If you're battling all three of them, this is going to get drug out forever. So I would say my response on if they walk or not in June, Rude, to me, a lot depends on Europe. A lot. Microsoft won't tell you that. They have to position themselves right now that they're going to fight. But I bet you that within Microsoft right now, there is some real close looks about what happens in Europe. Because at that point, you're fighting everyone. You're essentially fighting the entire, from Xbox, the majority of their entire market. You know what I mean? They're not big in Asia at all. They have decent success in South America and some countries like Brazil and stuff, but literally probably 90+% of Xbox's business is fully in the United States, Europe, and UK. So you're essentially at that point fighting every single market that you have any success in. So, man, I don't know. I really don't know. But that would be my response right now. Rude, again, is not a law expert. I am not Hogue Law. But as a guy looking at the situation, I think a lot depends on what Europe says. If they block as well, I think it gets sketchy if you really want to drag this out. We have a couple more super chats I'm going to hit really quick. Split End gifted a membership. Thank you so much, buddy. You've been gifted memberships in a ton of the chats, man. You do not have to do that. Perfect Shogun got that gifted membership from Split End 89. Appreciate that so much, buddy. Thanks for helping mod the channel and being a great friend. Congrats to Perfect Shogun for being a channel member now. That means you're guaranteed to get a question answered this chat, Perfect Shogun. So if you've got a question, drop it in there. Casual Noob Gamer with a 199 super chat. In chat, I explained my super chat from last time on. Okay, let's see. What did Casual Noob Gamer say from last chat? Let's see. Here we go. Casual Noob Gamer says, when I tagged you on Twitter for the Xbox interview, it was an interview of an Xbox head by IGN giving insight as to why Bill Gates greenlit Xbox. It was because they were worried about PlayStation moving into PC computing market, and I feel that Xbox motivation is to keep PlayStation occupied and not dominate. You should check out the video. I will definitely check that out, Casual Noob Gamer. I watched the Xbox documentary on this that they made. I think it was called like Xbox On or Powered On or something, and they actually went into it a little bit there as well. That, yeah, they were kind of afraid of PlayStation moving into past just being like a console and into the living room, and PC potentially taking over the living room. So pretty interesting. I'll check that out, Casual Noob Gamer. Thanks for the heads up. Couple more super chats really quick. We've got Kilver here with a 199. Sony don't have to hold back now. Showcase. Yeah, Showcase is coming from PlayStation. Absolutely, I would think in May. Because honestly, I think they would have either way. I think they just knew that they had to get a Showcase soon. And for the other part of it, a lot of people have been wondering, Sony been holding off specifically because of this, court battle? Essentially, Sony's got the green light no matter what, if at all that was a factor. I've still been somewhat doubtful that played a factor in a Showcase. It's just my belief that their first-party teams weren't ready to show games. But if there was some belief in Sony that they didn't want to show while this case was going on, this case now basically has nothing to do with Sony. The reason it is specifically stated as being blocked has to do with cloud, and they essentially said straight up, like, we don't think the console gaming market's in jeopardy. We're worried about the future with cloud and streaming. So Sony's essentially, I know it sounds kind of crazy considering how much Sony has fought this, but they're essentially a non-player in this case now. Essentially. I'm sure they're still going to want comments from Sony and everything as this moves forward, as there's appeals and as there's battles. But really, like, PlayStation versus Xbox isn't really the thing that's being looked at anymore. The thing that is being, battled is, hey, if we give Microsoft all this power right now, while cloud streaming's not gigantic, in 10 years, if cloud becomes the primarily way people play games, are we suddenly giving Xbox and Microsoft massive power in that space? I'm not as confident that cloud becomes as massive of a thing as some people think it is. I think it's going to become very important, but do I think it becomes the dominant way people play games? I'll be honest, I'm skeptical about it, but we'll see. But that is what the courts are worried about right now. That's the essentially big factor here. It's not really, oh, are you going to outsell PlayStation 5 and hurt PlayStation console sales? I know at one point that was part of the discussion, but now it's kind of moved past that, and it's really about streaming. So yeah, Sony, either way, regardless whether they cared or not, if that affected the Showcase, either way they're good to go. So yes, I agree, Kilver. I believe the reports that there's a Showcase coming very soon. Thanks for the turnout in chat right now. Holy cow, we're at almost 200. If we get to over 200, I think it'll be the first time ever one of my live chats had more than 200 in chat. So thank you so much, guys. The support lately has been wild. Highlander001 with a 5 super chat. I feel the deal is dead. There's no way Microsoft and Activision will fight CMA for 3 years. Without ABK, I do not see Game Pass growing. Man, Highlander, I do lean more on the side that I think this deal's dead, but we'll see. It's not impossible. You're seeing people like Pactor come out with theories that they could carve out, Activision games specifically from the UK, that maybe they could, offer Activision games within Game Pass in other markets. But if you're in the UK, you don't get Activision games there. Man, that would suck for people in the UK if that is the case, if that's how they have to get it through, because this deal doesn't do a whole lot to help you. I'm going to be honest, if you're a consumer in the UK, if that's the way it goes, because Activision games will still be games you got to straight up pay for. You can't get them in a sub. You might be able to, maybe one benefit you get is maybe Microsoft allows some of these teams to do stuff besides Call of Duty, but the main draw here, if you're an Xbox gamer, is to get all of Activision and Blizzard and Game Pass, right? Like, let's just be honest, that's the main pull for it. So that would suck if you're in the UK, if that's how they have to get it through. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that would be the case in US or Europe or anything like that. You would still probably get Activision games in Game Pass. But I saw that was one theory Pactor had, is that just Activision doesn't get to be part of Game Pass in the UK. There's some other things that they can do to try and fight it. I think the deal is in massive jeopardy now. Massive jeopardy. Again, I'm not going to go as far as to say there's 0% chance, because who knows? But man, that's a problem. Like I said, if Europe comes through 2 in blocks, I do think it's dead. If we get FTC, CMA, and Europe all blocking, I think it's dead. I don't see how Microsoft's going to fight all 3 of those battles and win them all. I could be wrong, but the concessions, I think, to get that through, even if they could on all 3, would be so severe, you have to start asking the question, is this remotely worth it? At the end of the deal, at the end of the day, there's only so many concessions you can give before it starts to be like, what's really the point of doing this now? Like, why are we actually going to do this? Because if it became a situation where, UK, in order to get this through, you have to do what Pactor's theorizing, where, hey, Activision doesn't get to be part of Game Pass. And if you get it to the point where that's now the case in Europe as well, hey, in order to get it, we'll let it through, but now Activision games can't be part of Game Pass in the UK or Europe. Then you start to be like, why are we doing this deal? Why are we spending $70 billion if we can't even put these games in the subservice, which, let's all be honest, that's the main reason why Xbox wants Activision Blizzard. All the other things are great, exclusives or whatever, cool. Microsoft wants this because they want Call of Duty to be in Game Pass, and they want future Diablo games to be in Game Pass, and they want future Overwatch games to have compatibility with Game Pass. Like, that's the main reason. Everything else is a nice bonus, but it's to fuel Game Pass growth. And if you start having to carve out such severe stipulations that you're not even getting these in Game Pass in multiple markets, I would 100% walk. I don't see why you would even acquire them at that point. So we'll see. Again, I don't want to say it's outright dead, like fully, but it's in trouble. And if Europe moves the block as well, I do think it's dead at that point. So we'll see. We'll see. But the deal is absolutely in trouble. Let's run a poll. Let's do it, guys. We've been running several polls on these. But now with this news, this shocking, huge news, let's say, is the acquisition dead? Here we go. Is the acquisition dead? I'm dropping it in chat. And thanks for over 200 in chat. I believe that's the first time that's ever happened on the channel. Yes, we're going to say yes. It's not going to go through. We'll say maybe, depends on EU, right? Maybe you think like me that a lot hinges on what Europe decides here as well. We'll say no, deal eventually passes. All right, so those are your 3 options. I'm dropping it in chat. Is the acquisition dead? Yes, it's not going to go through. Maybe, depends on EU. No, eventually passes. All right, guys, poll in the chat. Thank you so much, guys, for all of the turnout today. It's incredible. Really, really appreciate it. All right. Another super chat here in chat from Rude with a 5. What do you think Microsoft should do now if the ABK deal dies? What can they do to ensure Game Pass growth? Do you think they try to acquire Ubisoft? If ABK gets blocked, I believe personally that they will never try for a publisher again, or not for a very long time. I know that, you could make the argument, hey, Ubisoft's market cap is so much lower than Activision. It's not going to be near as dangerous of a thing to try to get past as what Activision was, because let's be honest, the market cap gap is enormous, right? Ubisoft's market cap, last I looked, what was tiny in comparison. Let's look. What's Ubisoft's market cap at today? What's it at? I mean, it's tiny. So their market cap right now is 3.46 billion roughly is what I'm saying. 3.4, yeah, it's right around 3.4 billion for Ubisoft compared to, you know, the 70 billion that they're paying for Activision. We're talking about enormous worlds of difference. So I can 100% see the argument, hey, you know, just because that didn't go through, that doesn't mean you can't try for smaller publishers. However, I think if you're Microsoft, you got to really wonder if this fails, do we want to roll that dice again, even if it's on a smaller company? Because if you lose again on another publisher, even if they're smaller, it's still not going to be cheap, right? They're still going to have to pay Ubisoft, what, $1 billion or something if that fails as well, because Ubisoft's going to do the same thing Activision did, especially after Activision failed. They would be putting in stipulations for big payouts if this doesn't go through. I think, Rude, you will see more acquisitions from Microsoft if this doesn't go through. I don't think, though, that they will be publisher related. I think they'll be easy things that they know for a fact they'll be able to get through, like independently owned studios. I've talked about it on this chat all the time. There's essentially no argument that any government could make that an independently run studio couldn't be purchased by any of the platform holders, because look at how many new studios we see founded every single day. Like, it's constant now, right? We're just constantly seeing all these new studios start up all over the place. Anyone can essentially go out and start a studio. Me and you, Rude, we could go out, we could form a company, and we could start a studio. That doesn't mean it would be successful, but studios, I think you'll be able to have limitless, essentially, acquisitions on. However, going out, the odds, Rude, that me and you go out and found the next Activision are like 1,000,000,000,000. You know what I mean? So governments are going to look at it. If, let's say, Microsoft came out and said they're going to buy Certain Affinity or just some random studio, I don't think anyone's going to have any opposition to that, because they're going to look at the industry and they're going to see how many studios there are and new studios starting up all the time, and they're going to be like, okay, that's fine. But publishers, if Activision Blizzard fails, I think publishers, it's a huge warning sign to the industry that you guys probably aren't going to be getting these through. Not publishers. But I think they'll definitely go out and buy some studios. If it fails, I definitely think they'll go out and buy some studios. But I wouldn't expect Ubisoft or any publisher for that matter. We had a couple more super chats popping in. Oni X with a 2 super chat. Thanks CMA for $80 games. No Call of Duty for Switch / GeForce. Yeah, Oni X, I am of the opinion personally, I've been in favor of this acquisition. I kept saying I don't really want to see any more publisher acquisitions after this one, to be honest. I was kind of in favor of this one because I personally believe that Activision Blizzard is a poorly run company right now under, you know, the current leadership that's there. That doesn't mean I don't think there's good people at Activision Blizzard, but I think that they ran Call of Duty so aggressively close to the wire on a lot of these games. They're barely getting them shipped. We know all of the harassment issues that have been going on there. It would have been nice to see Call of Duty hit more platforms. I kind of was like, I honestly think this is the best thing for the people at Activision personally. Like, I truly believe Activision Blizzard would probably be a better company under Microsoft than they are independently. So I was kind of in favor of it, you know, but I didn't want to see a whole bunch more. I kept saying that. I was on record saying that. I don't really want to see many more publishers, but I was kind of in favor of this one, but we'll see. Oni X, it's not completely over yet, but things are definitely looking sketchy. George Corona III with a 10 super chat. Bloomberg is reporting it's dead with there never having been a successful antitrust CMA appeal. I think you mean Microsoft. It says CT, but I think you see Microsoft Blizz can walk away with $3 billion from Microsoft in July. How impactful would that cash hit actually be? I mean, it's not crazy that Bloomberg's reporting that, because I saw that stat as well. There has been, I think the overall cases against the CMA was something like 61 or 67% of cases they've won since 2010. However, as George is reporting here, that Bloomberg's saying, specifically, I believe, antitrust cases, which is what this is. This isn't just like a random case. It's being viewed as antitrust. I believe that is correct what George is saying, that there has never been a successful appeal with the CMA on that. Like I said, George, I'm erring on the side right now. This deal is going to die in the next, 6 months. But, We'll see. But George, it's a very useful point to be pointing out that they've never lost because for anyone that doesn't know, part of the reason why the CMA is such an issue for them to have failed, it is not like the FTC where you can take this to outside courts. And I know that the FTC has its own court that this rules on as well. But if Microsoft wanted to be ultra aggressive and be like, let's just say the FTC continues to block, they could try and move this even further up and get it, even out of the FTC's hands, all the way up to the Supreme Court if they really wanted to. I don't know if the Supreme Court would hear it, but if Microsoft really wanted to lobby and battle tooth and nail, and plus, even though the FTC has their own court, they technically are separate from FTC board members. The thing that makes the CMA such an issue, and again, I'm not a law expert, but from what I understand, right, I'm doing the research trying to find out about as much about this deal as I can, is with the CMA appeal, if they win the appeal, they just go right back to the same CMA members. It just goes right back to the CMA. And now they have to win it back with the CMA. And it's like, well, you're going straight directly back to the people that already told you no. Odds are they're going to tell you no again. You never know. Maybe they will change their minds through the process. But the odds are, if they already told you no, they're probably going to tell you no again. The deal is in massive jeopardy now. Anyone telling you differently is not correct. Again, doesn't mean the deal's dead, but it is in massive jeopardy. And if Europe says that they're blocking as well, I believe it truly is dead. But we'll see. We'll see. Now, how big of an impact would the cash actually be to Microsoft? To be honest, for a company like Microsoft, $3 billion, it sounds like a ridiculous amount of money to me and you. For them, it's honestly not that big of a hit. They could just tank $3 billion, and it doesn't feel good. Burning $3 billion is not going to feel good to anyone, but they could tank a $3 billion loss, for example, way easier than Sony could. Sony, you just look at the market cap, it's a world of difference. So they could tank that, but the problem for Microsoft, I think, isn't just the loss of the $3 billion on paper. I think the thing that makes this so impactful to them is, like I said, really not the money. I think it's losing this in Game Pass. I think they really want Call of Duty in Game Pass, and they really want Blizzard games in Game Pass. So there's that. And then there's also the reverberations this has on the industry. Like I said, this probably sends a message that all publishers are off the table now, regardless of market cap size. And you have to wonder how much this will affect purchases in general and consolidation moves in general in the industry and all of this sort of stuff. The results of this case are going to have massive impacts for a very long time. So I don't think the $3 billion there in general is really the deciding factor on walking or not. It's more the Game Pass impact and, these other things. Highlander, oh wait, no, sorry. I missed some more chats. There's some more super chats. Dead Planet with a 5 super chat. In my opinion, Xbox needs to hit eject on this and start a clean slate before their showcase. Having this be a dark cloud over the rest of the gen isn't smart. Yeah, I am of the opinion I would walk if I was them. But, they have different beliefs clearly than what I do, because you're seeing them just outright say they're going to fight it, right? You're seeing Brad Smith say it. You're seeing, Bobby Kotick say it. So, Dead Planet, I'm going to be honest, for me, I would side with you. I personally, let's just say by some magic thing, I was running Xbox. And clearly, guys, Phil does a much better job running Xbox than I ever could dream of. So take this with a massive grain of salt. But if you're just saying, hey, Benji, you have the power, I'd walk. I'd bail on this thing. I would use some money to heavily beef up my first-party studios that I already have. All these Ninja Theories and 343s and Coalitions, I would just turn them all into absolute juggernauts because you could do all that for way cheaper, to be honest, than what they're paying. I would massively invest in the studios that I already have, and I would go out and make some smart acquisitions on some independently owned studios that I think could really help. Of course, though, none of that is going to have the IP power that Blizzard and Call of Duty are. So that's really what this is about. It's not, to be honest, this deal's not really about workforce. It's not really about, oh, we think Activision Blizzard devs are so talented, even though they do, clearly. And this isn't a shot on Activision Blizzard devs. They're incredibly talented. But the main thing here is Microsoft wants that IP power. They want to be able to put Call of Duty on their service. They want to be able to put Diablo on their service. They want to be able to put World of Warcraft somehow on PC into their service. So nothing will have the IP power that they have, but I would walk anyways. I think there's a lot of other stuff you could do for a lot cheaper and still have success. Maybe not the same sort of success, but definitely still success. All right, let's look at the results of this poll right now because I'm actually going to run a second one because that's a great thing. So right now, guys, where the poll stands, I asked you, is the acquisition dead? 34% of you say, yeah, it's not going to go through. 34% of you is the second biggest option. You guys just think the deal's dead. So about a third of you. 44% of you say maybe it depends on the EU. So you guys think it also, if Europe says no, that Microsoft's just going to kill this deal. And then 23% of you are still holding out that it eventually passes. I don't think the 22 or 23% are crazy. I think they could maybe find ways to make this through, but I think it is telling that so many people are either on the fence that it's dead or fully on board that it's dead, because I think right now, and this deal has been so volatile that things could massively change, but I think right now it does look like we're talking severe jeopardy for this thing going through. So we're going to end that poll. And I actually have another one that's related to this that I want to get your guys' thoughts on. And that's exactly what we just talked about. So not is the deal dead, but in your opinion, should Microsoft walk on the deal? So should they bail? Should Microsoft just bail on this deal? Not, hey, do you think they can fight and win? In your opinion, do you think Microsoft should walk? We'll say yes. Waste of time / money. Or we'll say, no, keep fighting. So that's really it. It's just a yes or no. Should Microsoft walk or bail on the deal? Curious to get your guys' thoughts on that. All right, a few more super chats. Let's see where we're at. Timmer72299 with a 5 super chat. Hi, Benji. Do you see private equity firms and other non-gaming industry players buying some publishers / developers in the next few years? Plus, you rock. Thank you so much, Timmer. So that is an interesting question, and that's an interesting different wrinkle, because I said if this deal gets blocked, I think it's a message to the industry that you basically can't buy publishers right now. Like they're going to stand against publisher acquisitions for now, at least definitely the major publishers. Someone small, like really small, we're not even talking about Ubisoft, we're talking like a Focus Entertainment or something like that. I think you could probably go out and buy someone like that, like as a publisher. We're talking the big ones, the ones we all know, the Ubisofts, the EAs, the Take-Twos, the Activisions. I think those are pretty much off the table, not just for Microsoft, but for Sony and Nintendo if this gets blocked. Because you're just going to see the headache Microsoft went through and be like, we really don't want to roll the dice on that. But private equity is a whole different ball game. So, Timmer, I think something like that's actually possible because private equity is not a current platform holder. I think this is a platform holder specific thing that I'm saying. I think it's a message to Microsoft, a message to Sony, a message to even Nintendo, though I don't think Nintendo would ever even try and buy a publisher. But anyone that has a big platform that's already a massive player in this industry, I think that's what I mean when I say, hey, you guys ain't getting publishers right now, because they're, I think, afraid of consolidation as we move into streaming and market changes like that. Private equity, they don't have a platform. So those I think would be fine, Timmer. I don't think anyone's going to block, let's say some private equity firm comes out and buys Ubisoft. I don't think anyone's going to really care. They're going to let that go through. It's more, hey, Sony, hey, Microsoft, don't go for Ubisoft. Hey, Sony, hey, Microsoft, don't go for Take-Two. I think it's that kind of thing that they're trying to send a message on. And thank you so much, Timmer. Very kind of you for that super chat. Keep up the great work on Twitter. Red Dead Series here with a super chat. Thank you so much, Red Dead Series. Great to see you, buddy. I always appreciate the positivity on my tweets when I say I'm going live. How will the Activision acquisition affect LeBron's legacy? That is hilarious. Well, I don't think it's going to affect LeBron. That's your first super chat, it says Red Dead Series. Hilarious comment. I saw people commenting on my tweet about it being like saying the same thing. For anyone that doesn't get the joke, here in the US or people that pay attention to basketball, like every single story relating to anything in basketball, it always comes back to like, how's it going to affect LeBron's legacy? Like any moment. Hilarious. But this one won't affect him. Hilarious. Highlander001 with a 5 super chat. Apologize to all the free questions, but the super chats are exploding today. Thank you so much, guys. Same with the viewership. This is by far the biggest live chat in the history of this channel. Activision stock dropped to $76.98 a share. That's 12% value. How far will it drop before Activision is in trouble? Could it lead to Chapter 7 or 11? I saw that as well. The stock's in free fall. That should tell you guys that, investors are really doubtful this deal is going to pass. Now, again, it's not completely dead. It's not like it dropped by 50%, but we're talking a 12% drop in a single day. That's a massive decline. That's just a huge drop. That doesn't mean that everyone's off board now, but it means a lot of investors that were spending money on this stock thinking they're going to get a return now are highly questioning that, and they're getting out while they can. That's why that price is going down. Now, would it result in Activision Blizzard going bankrupt? No. Activision Blizzard is still going to be able to be a successful publisher on their own, even if Microsoft doesn't get them. Call of Duty is still massive. I responded to someone yesterday because they were telling me, Call of Duty's dead. It's not an important franchise. Call of Duty right now is the #1 played game on Xbox Live. #1. It's ahead of Fortnite. If you look, Overwatch is still there's this narrative that goes around that like Overwatch 2's dead. No, it's actually right now more successful than Overwatch 1 in terms of steady player counts. This thing's still in the top 11, I believe, most played games on Xbox, and that's not even its main platform. PC is. Overwatch is still huge. Diablo is going to be utterly massive. So I think, I commented earlier, I think Activision Blizzard isn't run that well in terms of their leadership. However, they still have tons of massive hits and even more massive hits coming. And I actually do feel like Blizzard's making a big turnaround. As an Overwatch player myself, I think Overwatch 2 has been absolutely fantastic for support. The Diablo 4 beta was amazing. Doesn't mean Blizzard can't make mistakes, but it does feel like they're kind of turning their image around from those very rough years that they had. So, no, it's not doom for Activision Blizzard if this deal doesn't pass, but it's going to take some time to recover, absolutely. They're going to have to work hard to get that stock back up, because if it fully gets blocked, that'll drop even further than it is right now. Because right now, Microsoft's saying things like, hey, we're going to fight it. If Microsoft comes out in July and they're like, guys, we're walking from this deal, then that's going to collapse even more. Not to the point they'll go bankrupt. They have too many hits coming, and Call of Duty is still going to always be huge, but it'll hurt them bad. Yeah, very bad. Benji Gator 23. I don't know if that Benji is a reference to me, but if so, fun, or maybe your name's Benji. Do you think Microsoft and Sony will announce the Pro version of their consoles this year? Well, the rumor is that PlayStation 5 Pro is next holiday. I think that Sony will wait to announce that next year. So no, I don't think you'll see Sony announce one this year. Microsoft, I suspect, who knows? There's not even rumors right now about a Pro Xbox console. I think they'll probably make one if Sony's making a PS5 Pro, which it's increasingly looking like they really are going to do that. But there's no even rumors right now about like an more powerful Xbox. So considering Sony's isn't until next holiday, they won't want to impact sales right now. And Xbox, we don't even have rumors of one. I am skeptical. No, I don't think so. I think they'll wait until next year to announce it. For Sony, at least. For Microsoft, who knows, but probably not. Our super chats finally cleared. I appreciate all the super chats. There was just a ton of them off the top. We've got a second one. Second coming. Oh my God. With the $1.99 super chat. You think there's a chance of Microsoft killing off Xbox? No, not at all. For example, if you watch my video from yesterday, the Xbox business actually is very healthy. It's actually in a better spot than I even thought it was. I really thought that yesterday, whenever I was, going to report the Xbox's earnings and make a video on it, I thought I was fully prepared to go full doom and gloom, if I'm being honest with you. Not to the point where I was going to say Xbox is going to go out of business, but I was fully prepared to be like, Xbox is in such a bad state. That's just not true. It's objectively not true. They have a real issue on their hands in terms of hardware. They really got to improve their hardware sales because they're having some huge issues there. But the overall Xbox ecosystem, they just had the second biggest Q3 in the entire history of the Xbox brand. They're basically at the peaks of what they've ever accomplished as a company with Xbox gaming in terms of overall ecosystem. Branching out into PC and Game Pass subscriptions and all that have really helped them. So no, if they lose this deal, Xbox is absolutely not dead by any means, but they do have to make some definite improvements. That would also be a lie to say that everything's sugar and rainbows in Xbox camp. I tried to make that very clear in my video yesterday. There were some positive things. For anyone that missed it, on the surface, that 4% revenue decline and only 3% growth in content and services looks not impressive at all. And it's not like an amazing result, but it's actually better than what Microsoft forecast. So whenever they came out last quarter and told us what they thought they were going to do this quarter, they actually did better than what they expected. Anytime you're over delivering on what you thought you were going to, that's a good sign. However, hardware is a massive issue. They've got to figure their hardware situation out. So, Xbox itself is in no real danger of being killed off. They actually are pretty stable right now, but they have some issues they do need to address. Yes, they have to start getting the first-party games out consistently. It's not an option, it's a must. It has to happen. And they've got to improve their hardware sales. But no, I don't think Xbox is in any danger of going under. Brad Davis with a $4.99 super chat. Thank you so much, Brad Davis. If I were Microsoft, I would focus on Starfield build-up and launch. I feel it's probably the biggest new Microsoft IP since 2006 Gears. Agree. Yeah, Brad Davis, what I've been saying, and it's great to see you here, Brad. What I've been saying about Starfield is, to me, it is the most important Xbox game since Halo 3. I really believe that. Not just new IP, any game. I don't think there's ever been a more important first-party Xbox game since Halo 3. And look at how long ago that was. Halo 3 was so massively important to the early Xbox 360 success. You saw that game just be a massive hit. You saw huge console sales around it, huge software sales around it. I don't think they've had a single Xbox game that's been more important for the brand than Starfield. Whether it is, Xbox fans hyping it up, whether it is just Bethesda fans that have been starving for a new giant Bethesda RPG since, the Fallout and Skyrim from a long time ago. We haven't had a flagship Bethesda Game Studios RPG since Fallout 4, and that was quite a long time ago. I know there was Fallout 76, but we're talking like big single player, the Bethesda games. We haven't had one since Fallout 4, so people have been starving for it, and Xbox fans have massively hyped this up. And also from a Microsoft point of view, Bethesda was like your big giant acquisition that you made. This is like really the first of those huge games coming from their acquisition spree. If you look, Ninja Theory hasn't had a huge game under Xbox yet, right? We're waiting for Hellblade 2. Playground hasn't had a huge game under Xbox yet outside of Forza Horizon, which was already an Xbox exclusive, right? Now we still have to wait for Fable coming. Obsidian hasn't had a huge, game for Xbox yet because they had Pentiment, but that's not a huge game. We're waiting to see what Avowed does. If you look at, Compulsion, they don't have a game yet under Xbox. If you look at, what's the studio? Tango. They released Hi-Fi Rush, but it wasn't a big, giant AAA game. Like, Starfield's the game. It's like the game that Xbox is positioning. Here's what can be accomplished by these studios that we're buying. It's massively important, Brad. It cannot be overstated how important Starfield is. If Starfield somehow comes out and reviews poorly and underperforms, it'd be a very bad deal. It'd be very, very bad, Brad. So I'm not saying I expect that. I think Starfield's going to be awesome. I think it's going to be a huge hit, but it's that important, that important. And in terms of new IP, absolutely it's the biggest since Gears. And I think it's the biggest game out of Xbox first party since Halo 3. Highlander001 with a 5 super chat. With the CMA blocking ABK, do you see high-tech companies having second thoughts on doing business on or moving into the UK? Will there be backlash? That's one, I'll be frank, I just don't have a great viewpoint on. That's going to be something people living in the UK are going to have a way better viewpoint on. There's a big question about how much this really means beyond gaming. I saw that, I think it was Activision. I don't think it was Microsoft. I think it was Activision employees coming out and trying to basically make that statement. They were trying to say that, this is going to hurt the UK so bad. Tech's going to be afraid to come into you there and work on all that. I know that gaming is part of tech, but this acquisition specifically is gaming related. I don't know. I don't know if it's as aggressively negative of a thing for tech moving into UK is what they're trying to stay. You have to remember that Activision and Microsoft right now are going to be doing anything possible to position themselves as strongly as possible in this case. They're not going to come out and be like, hey, UK, that's great that you blocked us. They're going to, they're going to be coming out and saying aggressive statements like this. Again, though, I am no expert in like the UK market and the state of how tech is doing in UK. So I can only speak of this on an outsider perspective. But I would say it's not a great look if you're a big tech company, but I don't know that's quite the doom and gloom that Activision's trying to paint it as. We'll see, though. We'll see. Maybe there is going to be big ramifications. I'm just not 100% sure on that one. Buck with the 5 super chat. If Europe and China approve, why wouldn't Microsoft appeal and withhold ABK games from UK? Sony UK fans lose $3 billion UK, or give it to Kotick for free. Well, I mean, you could make the argument, and that's essentially what Pactor's theorizing. Pactor is theorizing that that's basically exactly what they're going to try and do in the UK. Not fully withhold games, but they're going to try and be like, hey, we're not going to put Activision games in Game Pass in the UK. I'm kind of with you, Buck, that if they can get this through in Europe, like if Europe comes out and announces May 22nd that this thing's passing, Microsoft still has some skin in the game to get this through, because if they can get it through Europe, and let's just say they are eventually able to beat FTC in the United States, then UK is a big market, but it's not the end of the world to be like, they'll never pull fully out of UK. Like, Microsoft does a lot of business in the UK outside of gaming, right? This is a battle with Microsoft. This isn't a battle with Xbox. This is a battle with Microsoft. And Microsoft has things like LinkedIn and, the Office Suite, and they have Azure. Like, they have so many services in the UK that go way beyond gaming. They would never be like, hey, Microsoft themselves are pulling out of the UK. That'll never happen. Not over buying a video game publisher. So they would have to try and get this thing through somehow with stipulations like the one Pactor's theorizing. But if they can somehow get everyone else on board, they'll probably still definitely go through with this acquisition and just somehow get some sort of crazy stipulations in the UK to get it through. But if Europe blocks, like I said earlier, I think it is truly dead. I think if Europe comes out May 22nd and is like, we're blocking this deal too, I just don't see how Microsoft's going to fight everyone. They'd essentially be fighting their entire market to get this through. So we'll see. We'll see. But that's, Buck, as you're saying, Europe is very important. I agree with you. Europe is very important in this. It might be dead either way, but Europe at least gives them a fighting chance. Mr. Real Shane with a 5 super chat. Benji, I'm so confused with this Microsoft Activision case. Sony and Nintendo have games that only work on their systems. Can you explain the difference? The difference is, and I'm not saying I agree with this is just what the CMA is stating. They are afraid that Microsoft is going to completely take over streaming and subscription in the future. That's what it's about. It's not about, exclusive games anymore for your console. They've essentially completely moved past that argument. It's not even a factor in this deal. They literally essentially just completely, all of those things that we saw for months about what if Call of Duty goes exclusive, and what about if, they don't release Activision games on PlayStations, essentially take all of that months and months of fighting that we had about that and throw it in the trash, because that's not even a factor moving forward. Now, it is in terms of exclusives to a streaming service. That is how they've changed the positioning on this. Now, it doesn't mean you need to agree with that. I think it's doubtful. I'm going to be honest. I said that earlier in the chat. I don't think that Microsoft, even with Activision Blizzard, is suddenly going to rule the future of gaming, because now 90% of gaming is done through streaming, and Activision will be that powerful within streaming that just no one else can compete. I'm skeptical of that. I'm going to be honest with you. I personally, I'm personal, I don't believe CMA has a case here, really, but how we personally feel about things doesn't always mean that it's true in terms of a legal battle, right? We've seen this stuff all sorts of times where cases that people think should have gotten one result don't, right? We see it all the time. So that is the difference, Mr. Real Shane. It's not about, hey, Sony has, an exclusive The Last of Us game, and why can't Microsoft have exclusives? It's not really about that now. It's about The CMA is saying, hey, we think in 10 years streaming is just going to be this dominant form in the market, and we're giving Microsoft, a company that's powerful already in streaming with Azure and all this stuff, too much power in that market. So that's what's going on now, Mr. Real Shane. That's the real battle. All right. Super chats are cleared. Holy cow. Thank you so much, guys. Crazy chat today. We're still over 200. By far the biggest chat in the history of this channel. Let's get some member questions really quick. Let's hit those members. Jacob Novick, Benji-Sales. How will Phil be looked upon if he successfully battles CMA and FTC and potentially Europe in a 3-year fight and win? I think it probably isn't happening, but if it does, per se. I mean, if I saw Jez Corden make a tweet, and he's basically said that if Xbox somehow gets this thing through, it'll be like a legendary achievement. It would be pretty dang impressive, if I'm being honest, if they somehow get this thing through battling, especially as you said, if it's CMA, FTC, and Europe, if they somehow get it through past all of that. Basically, you would have to say Microsoft has like the best lawyers on the planet, which of course I'm sure they basically do, because they have infinite wealth essentially. But it would be an incredible accomplishment, Jacob, if they can do it. Yeah, because just getting this past one of them would be a challenge. You know, I've personally have always thought that they could beat FTC. I don't know though if they can beat a combined front of FTC, CMA, and Europe. If they somehow did that, yeah, I mean, wow. You would have to look at, of course, Phil would be a big positive here, but like it really wouldn't be Phil forcing this thing through. It would be the lawyers. So that's who you would have to shout out. Not that Phil would have no part in this. He'd be making statements and things like that as well, but it really comes down to the lawyers making the right arguments. So shout out to their legal team. That's really who it would come down to, is wow. Talk about impressive legal team. Perfect Shogun said, thanks to Split End for the membership. J2 Blue Engage member thinks that it's not dead, but it might take a while. Yeah, up to 3 years, potentially. Mother of God, I hope it's not 3 years one way or another. Any other members that haven't had a super chat or anything answered? David Taylor, screw it. Go for Sega. They got mobile. They got Japanese studios and much cheaper than ABK. Yeah, but that'd be a huge challenge, man. First of all, you'd already have to be dealing with the ramifications of losing Activision Blizzard. And then on top of that, you'd have to deal with the challenges, period, of acquiring a Japanese publisher, which is not easy. It's way harder to acquire Sega than it is a Western publisher, for example. Now, in terms of market cap, it obviously wouldn't be anywhere near as difficult as Activision Blizzard in terms of just how big of a player it is in the industry. Sega is tiny compared to Activision Blizzard, but it presents other challenges. Japan might outright be like, no, and it's a Japanese company, so it doesn't really matter if other people approve it, because Japan is they are literally the government that it's located in. So, you know, it'd be a massive challenge. Not that I'm saying it's impossible. You never know how things shake out, but Sega would be not easy at all. J2 Blue Engage, what would be the reason the Europe wouldn't block the deal? Well, there was signs. I'm going to look at this two ways, whether you meant would or wouldn't. The one reason why they might, like would they do it, things looked positive out of there, but a lot of times these regulators kind of piggyback off of each other, and their finding is going to come out after both FTC and CMA. So there is the chance, we don't know, but there's the chance that Europe would see both FTC and CMA blocking and be like, you know, the other two markets that we're kind of aligned with, you know, Europe, US and UK, they're all sharing a whole bunch of economic things between each other. There's a chance they look at those and be like, do we really want to be the odd one out here? We should block because they are as well. So that's one reason why they might decide to block. One reason why they might not decide to block is that all of the rumblings we had coming out of Europe over the last month or so have been very positive towards Microsoft. So that's one reason why you would think maybe they are going to pass this. But again, there was rumblings coming out that CMA was going to pass. I just posted an article yesterday, quite literally on my Twitter feed yesterday, that came from the New York Post, I believe, saying that they were hearing, there's belief that this is just going to pass on CMA and they're going to force it through FTC. That didn't pan out. So just because we're hearing positive things out of Europe, that don't mean it's actually going to pass. We could be looking at the exact same thing that happened with CMA. Suddenly we wake up one day shocked that Europe has moved to block now as well. So we'll have to see what happens there. But yeah, it's a real coin flip right now. All right, Jacob already got a question. Any members that haven't gotten a question answered yet? I think all the members have had at least one. No, Perfect Shogun hasn't yet. Does Microsoft make Game Pass deals with ABK now while waiting for the final decisions to come down? They could, because this is nowhere near ending, right? We're talking potentially 3 years. Essentially, guys, if this really does drag out as long as it possibly can, Microsoft should right now essentially write off, we can't factor Activision Blizzard into our plans for this generation, because by that point, let's say it does take 3 years to work all this out, we'll be close to the next console, guys. That'll be 6 years into the cycle. Like, we'll already be gearing up for the next gen platforms. It won't be out yet. I've said repeatedly the cycle is going to be like 7, 8, whatever. It's going to be a long generation, but you're essentially at the end of the generation. So personally, right now, if I was at Xbox, I'm not saying I would walk on this deal, but if I was Phil, if I was Satya, if I was Aaron Greenberg, if I'm Sarah Bond, if I'm all of the leadership at Xbox, we have a meeting and we essentially say, we don't really look at Activision Blizzard for our plans for the rest of this generation. Hey, if things close sooner than that and we somehow get them, great. And then we can move from there. But for now, you essentially have to ride out this generation, assuming, just being logical, you have to assume it's not going to go through because it's already in jeopardy. And even if it does go through, we could be fighting for 3 years on this. So we need to pivot plans. We need to, not that they didn't technically own Activision Blizzard, so they couldn't make legally binding plans anyways, but it'd be crazy to think that Phil Spencer and Sarah and Aaron in their heads aren't thinking, what could we do with Call of Duty? What could we do with Blizzard this generation? Of course they'd be wondering that. And now, it might not be until this next gen's almost here. So you need to be planning out this life cycle as if you don't even have them. And if it does pass and it passes sooner than expected, great. So getting Game Pass deals with ABK while they wait for it to happen, sure. If Activision Blizzard agrees to it, that's the thing now. They have to actually, they can't count on anything from Activision Blizzard hitting Game Pass for the next potentially 3 years. If they really want ABK games to hit Game Pass, they're going to have to sign deals with them just like any other third-party publisher. And we have to see if ABK is willing to agree to that. So we'll see. Right now, they already said no Diablo. So they might not. They might be like, even if Microsoft wants Game Pass deals, ABK might be like, no, we're not going to do it. We'll have to see. All right. All super chats have been cleared. All members have gotten at least one question answered, I think, but Ken B. I think Ken B is the last one, and then I can start hitting free questions. Ken B, with the positive reviews for Jedi Survivor, what can we expect for first month sales for it now exceeding Fallen Order? Exceeding Fallen Order actually might be a little tough because people forget how giga massive Fallen Order was. And also, Jedi Survivor is current gen only. So the install base is healthy, but it's not ridiculously massive. However, look at Hogwarts Legacy. That thing sold 12 million copies in like 2 weeks. But that had, and that was current gen only in PC. Jedi Survivor is very similar, current gen only in PC. So I don't think it's impossible, can be, but I think people should be a little careful to not go too crazy with Fallen Order or Jedi Survivor sales, but they'll be massive. They'll be huge. The game's reviewing way better than the first game did, and the first game was actually already mostly widely loved. I know you're going to see some complaints online, but overall people really liked Fallen Order. So you already had positive momentum from people liking the first game. Plus now you have even higher critic reviews than the first game. Pretty much all of them saying it's improved in almost every way. So it's going to be huge. There's not a doubt in my mind Jedi Survivor is one of the best selling games of the year for the whole year. But when 2023 ends, Jedi Survivor is going to be in that list of best selling games. I don't think it's going to be anywhere near number one, but it's going to be one of the best selling games of the year. So huge. You should expect huge sales. Faster than Fallen Order might be tough, but we'll see. All right, let's get to some. Oh, it's happening again. I apologize to the people that come early in chat. These chats are getting so big now that YouTube doesn't let me scroll up enough. It's so annoying. All right, I scrolled up as high as I could. I apologize to the free questions from early in the chat. Right now, the poll that I ran, should Microsoft walk? We've got 63% of you saying yes, it's a waste of time and money. So 63% of you think that Microsoft should just bail on this Activision Blizzard deal. And then 37% of you are saying keep fighting it. So pretty interesting. We're about 2/3 to 1/3. Not exactly, but pretty close. Pretty close to about 2/3 of you saying they should just bail and about 1/3 of you saying keep fighting. All right, I scrolled up as high as I could on the chat. I'm going to hit as many questions as I can. I apologize again to the free questions that are coming in early. You guys should be rewarded for that. I hate how YouTube does this. Since the chats are becoming so big now, I'm going to have to, I think, start screenshotting early in the chat so that you guys can get your questions answered, because you should be rewarded. You're coming in super early, but YouTube's so dumb. It doesn't let me scroll up once a certain amount of messages are in chat. Okay. So I'm gonna hit what I can. JCat, great to see you. JCat says over 200. I know, I can't believe it. This was by far the biggest chat this channel's ever had. Darnell Hill, cloud gaming and Game Pass is two different things. Kind of, but not really. The xCloud stuff comes with Game Pass. So I get what you're saying, that they are different things, but Microsoft is kind of viewing them as one and the same, and I think that, you know, the courts are looking at it that way as well. They're all looking at it as one big thing. But I get what you're saying, Darnell Hill. Recorvo, there's hope, but I agree. Is it even worth fighting for a dead deal? Yeah, that's the question Microsoft has to ask themselves. Xavier thinks that Europe accepts and FTC is a weak regulator, and it'll be about a year battle between Microsoft and CMA. That's not impossible. Like I said, if Europe comes out and passes this, I think that they have a fighting chance. That doesn't mean I think things are sugar and rainbows and it's a lock that this passes, but they at least have a fighting chance. They really need Europe to side with them. They really, really need that. They absolutely need that. Santiago thinks the deal is completely dead. Nikita Percy, how's your day, Benji? Good. It's a good day. It's a really, really good day. I hope you're having a great day too, Nikita. Benji Gator, even if the acquisition of the full company is dead, can Microsoft still acquire either IPs or smaller sub-studios from within Activision? Theoretically, they could, but I don't think Microsoft would have any interest in that, or Activision. So theoretically, let's say the deal does die, could, you know, Activision sell an IP to Microsoft? Of course, yeah, they can. I don't see why Microsoft would want to do that, though, because it would be extremely expensive. Like, just buying Call of Duty by itself is going to be an absolute fortune. And that doesn't benefit Activision really in any other way, because they would sell the IP and yeah, they'd like make a lot of money off of it, but now they don't have their biggest IP, period. You know, you could say the same thing for the Blizzard games. You know, sure, you could theoretically sell off the World of Warcraft or Overwatch IPs, but that doesn't do any good for Activision. So, no, I think if the deal's dead, it's all dead. I don't think Microsoft will get anything out of it. If, you know, that's if it dies. Brazil, Anubis, how possible is it for Sony to acquire another big Japanese studio? Would this be considered anti-competitive? No. Like I said, studios are fair game. I don't think you'll see any studio basically ever get blocked, because that's just crazy talk. Anyone can found a studio. There's so many new studios being founded right now. It's crazy. Like, just all you have to do is just look. They're everywhere. There's constantly new studios popping up. So sure, they could definitely buy some big studios. Now, publishers, I think the Japanese government would let it through, if I'm honest. But the question is are any of the Japanese publishers wanting to sell, right? Is there anyone at Square Enix that actually wants to sell the company? Is there anyone at Capcom that actually wants to sell the company? Is there anyone at Sega that wants to sell the company? You know, they got to want to sell. And I think Sony could probably get a Japanese one, but I don't know. The Pope's Lubix. I think it will go through. I'm in college for business management, and you kind of learn about this. This is what will happen. The CMA will put a guideline out with stipulations. It's possible. It's possible, but the thing that I come back to is what I said earlier. At what point does this just not get worth it to you if you're Microsoft? How many stipulations are we talking, right? Let's say UK, you have all these carve-outs and caveats to get it passed around Activision games not in Game Pass. What if you have to do the same thing at the FTC? What if you can eventually get this through, but the sheer amount of concessions you have to make, at what point does none of this become worth it? You know what I mean? At what point is the deal actually still worth $70 billion? Because the one thing that we're debating here is, can it get through? There's probably ways that it can get through one way or another with huge concessions. Like at one point they were talking about spinning off Call of Duty. But at what point does it stop being worth $70 billion? We're talking enormous, enormous sums of money. And at some point, I'm not saying we'll get there, but at some point there are so many concessions attached that you have to be like, I don't want to spend $70 billion on this. Like, I don't want this. This is now ruining my plans of exactly why I wanted this company in the first place. Now I don't want all of this. So, you know, there's a whole lot that goes into this before we can say this deal's anywhere near passing or fully dead, because if the concessions get too severe from FTC, CMA in Europe, if theoretically Europe blocks, I just don't think the deal's worth it. I don't think it's worth $70 billion. I don't even think it's worth close to that. But we'll see. Human could be blessing in disguise. They're having trouble managing their studios now. Put a few billion to get their house in order and then start acquiring again. I'm actually not 100% against this idea, Human. I've been saying in my private Discord for a while, I don't really like how this deal has turned out. I get that the IP are super attractive, but I think Microsoft's having a lot of issues with their own studios anyways. I would really be working on improving that before you take on thousands and thousands and thousands of more devs and studios, and we'll see. Again, I'm not 100% against Microsoft getting them, but if it fails, I actually don't think it's the end of the world, because I think they have a lot of housekeeping to do in their own studios anyways. Now this I agree with. My name is Mud. I think Activision signs the next Call of Duty marketing deal with Microsoft now. I 100% agree with this. Even if Microsoft is not successful in acquiring Activision Blizzard, I believe that the Sony Call of Duty deal is dead, 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 dead. 1,000,000 times dead. I don't think there is so much dislike between Activision right now and Sony, like just publicly. So who even knows what it's like behind the scenes? If you have public people like Bobby Kotick and other people at Activision coming out making very aggressive, essentially anti-Sony statements in the public, you can only imagine what they're saying behind the scenes. Yeah, I don't think there's any chance Activision renegotiates that deal with PlayStation, unless Sony just gives them quite literally stupid money. But as long as Microsoft's even close on matching any deal that Sony would propose on a Call of Duty marketing deal, that ain't happening. It's going, no matter what, I do agree with you. I think that the Call of Duty marketing is going to Xbox once the PlayStation one's over. That's dead. I agree with you. Benji says I could see Microsoft going out and acquiring a studio like a Sobo. Yeah, exactly. That kind of stuff is doable. Make sure there's no super chats. I don't think so. Okay, still hitting free questions. Oh my god, every time I scroll down, I lose chat, dude. This is so dumb. It's dumb that YouTube does this. I apologize, guys. I keep just losing questions. I'm going to have to find a different way to get free questions in the chat because the chats are getting too big to just like individually scroll through chat. There's a way I think I know I can get some free questions in there. So we'll do that the next one because it's getting to be too much of a problem. What I'm going to do is to get more free questions on here that don't get lost in the chat. I'm going to post because you can make posts on YouTube besides just like videos, like posts. I'm going to make posts on YouTube. Maybe like the morning that we're going to do a chat, like hours before the chat starts. And I'm going to say, drop your questions here for the live chat. And the ones that get the most upvotes on that, those ones I will make sure to get into the stream. Okay. And I'm still going to, of course, hit questions like this as well as I can. But the chats now are becoming so packed that I just lose tons of questions in the chat feed. So that way people that get in early can still get their questions answered. Human Schreier pointed out the Stadia failure made Xbox even more dominant in cloud. Stadia ran by Phil Harrison. He can't keep getting away with this. I know I saw that and it cracked me up. I was like, wow, Phil Harrison truly is the touch of death in the gaming industry. For anyone that has missed Phil Harrison's career, just go look it up. This man truly is the kiss of death in gaming. I'm sure he's a great guy. I'm sure Phil Harrison's a super nice person. This isn't an insult on an insult to Phil Harrison. However, the man's career is just the kiss of death. It's wild, man. It is wild how it's repeated. It's not once, it's not twice, repeatedly. It's crazy. Brant N. Two things I saw. One, said in the paper they're consulted with Europe and FTC, and two, they're ruling the deal is so big it warrants actual oversight of Microsoft, which itself degrades from the natural growth of cloud. Interesting. So they are specifically mentioned consulting with Europe before they went for the block. A little dangerous, guys. If that's actually in the paper, I haven't read the entire paper. I've just read their public statements. Little worrying, I would say, if you're Xbox, if they're talking to a specific consultant with Europe and FTC and still come to a block. Again, that doesn't mean that Europe's definitely going to block at all, because of course they're consulting with one another. But, Fred Gruen says Microsoft can still be blocked from acquiring any studio over a certain amount. I know they technically can, but no one's going to block an individual studio because I truly believe that that is impossible to win in court. Like Activision Blizzard, you can actually make arguments against. An independent studio, I truly believe, is physically impossible to block, because there's just zero evidence that that would ever result in anti-competitiveness in the gaming industry specifically, where there are constantly new studios spinning up. Constantly. We're talking dozens per year. You just couldn't make the argument. Couldn't make it. But again, I know technically they could. Yeah, sure. You could technically block anything, but I just don't see how. I don't see how you would ever successfully block an independent studio, not a publisher. Eric the Red, what do you think could happen with Congress looking into Japan and Sony's anti-competitive practices now that this ABK deal shot down by the UK? I know that was a big talking point that was going on, but I don't think it will really do much because they're not even factoring Sony really into this anymore. That's not really what this deal's about anymore. If they had specifically moved a block and they specifically said, well, it's because the Sony console we feel is doomed because, Microsoft will have too much power, then you might really see that the US government push back on some things, right? Because Microsoft's a US company, and of course, the United States government wants US companies to have power on a global stage. That's just good for everyone in terms of the United States, right? That's good for business. However, that's not really what the deal's about anymore. Like I said earlier, Sony's kind of a non-factor anymore. Not that they're not part of this equation, not that they're not going to be coming and asked about stuff, but it's really now about cloud subscription and streaming, and that's not really Sony's forte at the moment. Of course, at some point, Sony's going to move more into that, but Sony's still very much a console company. That's not really what it's about. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. Pope Lubex, Microsoft should take that money into their own studios and take full advantage of the Series X. As a PlayStation fan, I do want to see Xbox do good. I'm not 100% against this. I think there's a lot of stuff they can do with the studios they already have. Fred Gruen, Benji, do you think it's possible Xbox goes back to the AB keyboard and asks and have them sign an offer that excludes the UK? Would be a long shot, but if the Europe approves, maybe that's the next best bet. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities. Like we said, this deal is getting renegotiated in July. A lot of things can change. July 18th, this deal changes from the deal that was already signed and agreed on. So we'll see. There's all sorts of different things they could try and do whenever they renegotiate the deal. There's also a chance, though, that that deal comes up and Microsoft or Activision are super unhappy with whatever the new terms are and walk. I mean, we'll see. There's a lot of things here. It ain't just about passing. This renegotiation is going to be interesting too. Uh, 2KZ254, losing mobile gaming is a big hit for Microsoft. Yeah, they really wanted King. Everyone's focused on Activision and Blizzard, and make no mistake, they wanted Call of Duty and Blizzard, but they also really wanted King because Microsoft has very little presence in the mobile gaming market. So it is a big loss, absolutely. King was a huge part of this deal. I agree with this. Pretty dude, Jason Schreier said it's more of an issue for Activision than Microsoft. I agree. There's a lot of plays and moves that Microsoft can still make with their business. And like I said in my video, which you guys can watch on the channel, that the Xbox business is actually pretty healthy. Like, it's not like, just the most amazing thing you've ever seen and like, double-digit growths in every area. It's, again, not like that, but it's a healthy business. So if they lose this, it's not the end of the world. It sucks, but it's not the end of the world. One Punch Jedi, this is not true. You're just not right. It ain't over yet, and you're talking like it's over. No, I didn't. I've said in here repeatedly that the deal might go through. Repeatedly, over and over and over and over again, I've said it might go through. If you're asking if I personally think that this is going to go through in the end, I think that this thing probably falls apart one way or another. But I've definitely not said on here even one time that the deal's completely dead. So, you might be projecting a bit. One thing I have found covering games, love you guys, a lot of projecting. People constantly like to tell you you're saying things that you've never said. And that comes with the territory. It's not the end of the world, but I hear it constantly. You said this. No, I didn't. I never said that. You're projecting things. Human says, I would rather have you as CEO of Xbox. No, 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 no. Listen, Phil has so much more experience than I ever could have. I'll tell you guys something in this chat. I think I've mentioned it before. Xbox approached me at one point about coming and working for Xbox. Of course, not as the CEO. And that fell apart on my end. It was actually my fault that fell apart. But there was theoretically a time, guys, that I actually would have worked at Xbox not that long ago. Like, I think they approached me a year and a half or 2 years ago. I won't say who approached me, and I won't say what the position was. But Xbox themselves came and approached me about working for them. So that almost happened actually. I did actually almost go work for Xbox. But let me tell you, I couldn't I definitely would not be as good at the job as Phil is. Phil knows so much more about the Xbox business than I could ever dream of. I'm just a guy giving you my opinions. But, I probably should have. It's my fault, guys. I really messed that situation up. But had I gotten that job, who knows? I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing right now with you guys. You know what I mean? That's the big trade-off I've had. Xbox isn't the only one. I've had actually multiple companies approach me about job opportunities, and it's been super weird because part of me, like, if you're just talking about pure financials, it makes all the sense in the world for me to be accepting these jobs. I am essentially poor. I'm just being honest with you guys. I'm barely making a livable wage as an entry-level retail employee. So financially, it makes all of the sense in the world to be like, yes, I want these jobs that have been offered. I always, every time these things come up, though, battle with, I have to drop all of this, though. You know what I mean? And I really enjoy what I do on YouTube. I really enjoy what I do on Twitter. It doesn't make me much money, but I love doing it. And if I am working at Xbox, I can't come on this YouTube channel and tell you guys all of my thoughts on how I think this acquisition's going, or the state of their business. Or let's say I go and worked for EA or Ubisoft. I couldn't do that. So it's a thing I'm always battling, because there's been opportunities. I'm just going to straight up say it. Xbox did not guarantee me a job. They approached me about being interested in me coming and working for them, and I messed that up and it fell apart. But I don't know. Maybe it's for the best that I remain independent. It's hard to say. Financially, it's absolutely not the best. But, for my own mental health, I really enjoy doing this stuff. Santiago 94, I would buy a lot of temporary exclusives in revenge towards Sony. Interesting. Phil has said in the past that he doesn't love like the timed exclusive things. And you've seen them kind of move away from that. Remember, there was like that time period where they were like signing, stuff like Tomb Raider as timed exclusives. Not that you're not still seeing Microsoft fund third-party exclusives, but it's almost more of like a like this isn't planned to be a timed thing. It's like this game exists because we're funding it sort of thing. Not all of those have been announced, but like one, for example, was Contraband. There's some other rumored ones that I'm sure will be announced soon that they're essentially funding. So I don't think it's a terrible idea, Santiago. No, if you have a really good studio that really wants to make a game and they could really use your support in order to make that game happen, like they won't be able to make it on their own and it could be an exclusive for you, I'm not against it. No, I'm definitely not against that. But we'll have to see. A lot of people in chat saying they don't believe that Microsoft Studios have been run that well. I am not in 100% disagreement with that. And again, I've talked about in this chat a lot. That doesn't mean that I think it's Phil's fault, because I doubt it's Phil's fault. Remember, all of these studios all have leadership within their own studios as well, right? They just need to get things really streamlined. It's not easy, guys. Making AAA games is not easy, but we see Nintendo and Sony regularly outputting way more steady output than Xbox, and Xbox has a lot of studios, so something does need to happen. I don't know what the answer is. I don't work there, but they do have to do something. They have to do something. I'm hoping that 2023 is the beginning of this regular output. We've already had Hi-Fi Rush, Redfall's right around the corner, Starfield's about to hit, Minecraft Legends released this year, which is a first-party game. If they can consistently do what they're doing right now in 2023, then you won't hear me complain at all about how the studios are being run. The problem is when you have like a year like 2022, we can't have years like that. Yeah, a lot of people saying Europe is very important. It is. It is. The ruling in Europe is going to be massively important. How long have we been going? I'm gonna be wrapping soon. I'm gonna wrap the stream in 9 minutes. 9 minutes and I'm out. Thank you for a record-breaking live chat today, guys. I can't see them buying Capcom. Some people are mentioning Capcom, I guess for Sony or Microsoft. If I was a leader at Capcom, I would never sell that publisher. They're on absolute fire right now. They don't really need to go exclusive to anyone. So if I personally, if I was at Capcom and someone was trying to buy me, I'd be like, no, nope, we're not selling. Xavier, I think CD Projekt is getting acquired in the next 5 years by some of those non-gaming entities. CD Projekt does, to me, look like a company primed to sell to someone. But we'll see. But, you know, technically they're not a massive major publisher. That would be interesting if one of the platform holders tried to buy CD Projekt, because I think you could actually successfully pull that off, because they're not out there being, you know, 70 billion market cap and having the most powerful brand arguably in the industry with Call of Duty. Someone might be able to get CD Projekt, whether that's non-gaming or gaming related. It's possible. That is, I would say that is a very attractive thing. Split End says Sony stock also skyrocketed. Is that true? I haven't looked at Sony stock today. That would be kind of funny. Let's see. Because they haven't even reported their earnings, so it would make it did go up. That's hilarious. That is really funny if that is actually why. It did, yeah, literally jumped today. I don't know if you guys can see this. Can you guys see the jump? Big jump, yeah, big jump today. You can see that's funny. I don't know if that's them, if that's investors being happy that they think this is going to be blocked, or if it's just people prepared for the PlayStation earnings. But that's pretty funny. Justin's asking if the deal fails, is there a chance we still see some Activision games coming to Game Pass? It's always possible, yeah. It's just they'll have to be negotiated like any other third party. There's no inherent advantage, you know. It's just going to be the exact same as if you were negotiating with Take-Two or you were negotiating with Ubisoft. You know, it's going to be the exact same scenario. So the question is if Activision would agree to that. That's up to them. Cade, do you still have to put your phone number in to play Overwatch 2? I don't think so, but I don't know. That's actually a great question. I don't know. Split End, almost like a friend of yours wrote a big article about Starfield. He did, yeah, on Gaming Trend. You could always check out Split End's article on Gaming Trend about Starfield. Sorry, we're wrapping this up very soon. 4 minutes. 4 minutes and I'm out. Sorry, there's just a lot of talking in the chat, and I'm trying to find the questions. So sorry if there's a lot of dead air here at the end of the chat. I agree with this, Nico. I never said it was. UK is nowhere near as big as USA or Europe. I agree. I don't know if you're saying that I said that, though. Like I said, if so, that comes back to the projecting thing. But I'm not saying you're saying that, Nico. I don't know. You could just be making that statement in general, but I never said UK is as big as US or Europe. Oh man. Sorry, there's just so much chat, which is fine. It's so frustrating when I lose all the questions at the top. Blazing Flame. Benji doesn't think Microsoft will acquire another publisher if Activision deal fails. No, I do not. Studios, yes. Publishers, no. If this fails, I think publishers are done. Telegram, what if Microsoft made a VPN and marketed it to the UK so they could still get Game Pass? That's funny. That's funny. Trying to find them workarounds. Spring Snail, Benji, is it true that Microsoft's 1 billion in subs revenue is not Game Pass subs only? There's other sub services. It was gaming specifically subscriptions. I was on the earnings call. It was while they were talking about their gaming division. So, but keep in mind, things like Xbox Live Gold will be included in that as well. So yes, it is correct to say that the 1 billion subs revenue was not specifically Game Pass alone. I saw some people saying online that they heard that it's just like all of Microsoft subscriptions. No, Microsoft makes fortunes more money than that whenever you go across all of the different things they have, like the Office suite and all of things like that. They were saying 1 billion in gaming subscriptions specifically, but keep in mind that is going to include things like Xbox Live Gold. Like I said in my overview of the earnings, I suspect the vast bulk of that is Game Pass. I don't think there's that many people anymore subscribed to only Gold because Game Pass Ultimate includes Gold anyways. So I don't know why you wouldn't just pay the little extra money to have Game Pass Ultimate than to just sub to Gold. But there are going to be some people still just sub to Gold or whatever. But yes, it was gaming subscriptions totaled nearly 1 billion, not just Game Pass. Brent N. Benji, Tears of the Kingdom Metacritic score predictions with the previews now out. I still think it goes 90 plus. I did notice that a lot of complaints about the controls. I wonder though if that changes with time. They only played 70 minutes. That's barely over an hour. If it's anything like Breath of the Wild, this game is going to be extremely long. So I'm hoping that the controls eventually click. The only common complaint I saw about Tears of the Kingdom was the controls, and it wasn't a one-off. I saw a lot of the previews complaining about that. So I guess the question would be is if they ever truly click or not. As long as they click and people are fine with it eventually after getting used to it, I don't think it impacts the scores really that much. If it's one of those things that people feel like they're constantly fighting with the controls, though, that actually, how a game feels when you control it's pretty important. And if that becomes a long-term problem, you might see it get some pretty, heavy hits. I don't think it'd be one of those things where all of a sudden now it's like a 6 out of 10, but, might keep some people from going above a 9, so we'll see. But in the end, I think it'll still be a 90 plus Metacritic for sure. I imagine you'll eventually get used to the controls, so I'll still go 90 plus. Gordon McLennan, hey Benji, do you think Netflix or Amazon Prime could buy a AAA studio? I think Netflix will, yeah. Amazon, I don't know. We'll see. They do have Amazon Gaming, and they have had some successes. Lost Ark or whatever it's called is still a big, huge game on PC. But Netflix, I won't be shocked at all. It seems Netflix is trying to aggressively get into gaming, so we'll see. I think Netflix absolutely might. We have a super chat coming in right at the end. Benji with a 5 super chat. Hi, Benji. 200 million cost for God of War Ragnarok seems crazy. How big budget will it be for the biggest games this gen? Grand Theft Auto 4, Starfield, Spider-Man, etc. I actually don't think that's that bad. 200 million is actually not that crazy to me, considering how expensive some games get. Like Grand Theft Auto 5 and stuff was way more expensive. So, did we ever find out what GTA's final budget was with marketing? I think it was like something like close to $500 million. I want to say it was like $500 million, not counting marketing. I'm seeing one that says over 265. Maybe it's another one I'm thinking of. Was that Destiny? There was a game that had a 500 million combined budget with marketing. But I can't remember what one that was. Yeah, oh, Destiny. Yeah, Destiny was the one I was thinking of. Yeah, there's some reports that Destiny, including marketing, 500 million. So you never know. Those are estimates, but I don't think it's that crazy. AAA games are extremely expensive nowadays. So 200 million for God of War sounds about right, if I'm being honest. That does not shock me at all. The Last of Us Part 3 will probably have a similar budget whenever that eventually gets made. It is a ton of money. How big budget will the biggest games this gen be? Grand Theft Auto 6, I don't even want to imagine what that cost. Because if Grand Theft Auto 5 was 265 million all the way back in, you know, when did that freaking game release now? 2013 or something? I can't even imagine what GTA 6's budget will be. That will be a game that truly is over $500 million with development and marketing. I guarantee you. The amount they're going to spend on marketing alone on that game is going to be ridiculous. So I don't think you'll see many games go that high, but I don't think 200 million is crazy for a lot of AAA games this generation. You're going to see a lot of stuff hit that kind of costs. Crazy expensive, but that's what it takes, man. That's what it takes nowadays to make a huge AAA game. Yeah, Gordon says Final Fantasy VII Remake was 140 million. Wow, yeah. Wow. That's what I'm saying. Expect to see a lot of games around that 200 million range. All right, I think I got to bail. Yeah, I got to go. I have stuff I have to get to. Thanks so much, everybody, for the huge turnout today. This was a record-setting chat, by far the biggest that I ever have had on this channel. Thanks for all of the support lately. Oh, wait. There's a super chat. Let me hit that super chat. I don't want to miss a super chat. We had a $2 super chat from Split End saying he was going to be Phil's foot tickler. No. So the job that I was offered to potentially, and again, it wasn't like offered to me like it's yours, but Xbox did reach out with a possible job. I can confirm it was not to be Phil's foot tickler. I will also say it wasn't Phil that approached me about working at Xbox. It was somebody else. But that is pretty much dead now. Not because of them, because of me. So guys, don't mess things up unless, again, maybe it's a good thing. I don't know. I've debated this for a long time ever since that happened. Maybe it's a good thing I didn't go work at Xbox, but we'll see. Maybe if my own independent stuff ever takes off. All right, guys, I got to bail. Thank you so much for the record turnout today. Thank you for all of the super chats. Thank you for all of the support lately. The other video I did on Xbox's financials is going really well too on engagement. The YouTube channel is at the highest level it's ever been since I created it. Still very, very small compared to big YouTubers, but I really appreciate how much you guys have thrown the support behind the channel lately. It's been really like record setting for me the last like 3 months or so. So I plan on making more of those like 10-minute videos. That one clearly was successful for me, so clearly you guys want some more short form content too besides these long live chats. So I'll try and get some more in for definitely each one of the other earnings. You'll get a Nintendo video like I did for Xbox, and you'll also get a Sony PlayStation 1 as well, guys. So those are guaranteed. Plus I'll try and do some on other topics as well. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Like the video if you haven't already. It helps the YouTube algorithm. Follow me on Twitter if you're not. That's where I'm the most active. That's where the most of my following is. That's where you'll see me the most often, but I'm going to try to be here on YouTube a lot more as well. Stay safe. Play some games. Thank you guys for all of the awesomeness. You guys are all amazing, and I'll see you all very, very soon, either next time here on YouTube or on Twitter very shortly. Thanks, guys. Have a good one. Bye. Bye, 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 bye.